the kōrero tūtoka tuariki. You'll see the epitome, some of it up here, on our tohu. Tūtoka tuariki. Ko te whakamārama, ana tupuna, the tuka, and we all have our own maunga, which provides the korowai for us. Te tihi o te maunga, ara ko te tuka tērā. The peak of our maunga, koe rā te tuka. Our korau have always said, the energy and the kōrero that you share with your people in relation to whakapapa comes from that tuka. And then, in the realms of Māoridom, that tuka is our ariki. All our kōrero and our knowledge that we share with our people comes from that tuka. So koe rā te whakamārama tūtoka, tuariki, the realm of well-being for us. But the journeys that we share with a lot of our people, mainly for our men, but we take nothing away from our taiohi, our mokopuna, our tama, and also our wahine, are along the lines of tūtoka tuariki, and we specifically deliver traditional practices. Under the korowai, aukati, smoke, alcohol, drug, violent free, all on the one waka. There's no separate wahanga for each one of those. So we deliver it in many forms of mahi toi, rāranga, mahinga kai, rongoa, and traditional weaponry. Our wāna that we have down in Waitaha number from about 8 to maybe a dozen a year. And we've just received fund support to help facilitate and run our wānanga after 25 years. After 25 years, we've facilitated those wānanga for that amount of years with our own whānau, compensating for the cost of it. Just to start our kōrero off, the reason why we deliver in traditional practices, a lot of this is probably one of the more prominent questions that come our way. Many years ago, when our tupuna sailed on their waka from the homeland, Tawhiti, and they paddled their waka, they spent about probably 1 or 2 months out on the moana on a diet of fish. They arrived here, and they lived from the moana, from the seas, to the ngahere, to the realm of tāne, to the whenua. They lived a prolonged life to the late 90s, sometimes, some of them, 100 years plus. However, in reality today, between the ages of 48 to 52, our Māori men are 6 foot underground. Where did we lose 40 or 50 years? In the kōrero of our kaumātua, we've moved too far away from our traditional practices. Too far from our traditional practices. And a lot of that is illustrated today, in reality, when our mokopuna, our tamariki, and our rangatahi, and even our pākeke, are exposed in media, mainstream media, Māori media, and particularly our mokopuna when they say in media form, TV, on the newspaper. I don't know who my father is, because he died before I was born. Or I don't know who my father is, because I haven't seen him for that long, since I was 2 months old and he left my mother. That's reality for a lot of our men in that today. How do we address a lot of those? We ask the questions to our men, me pehe, te oranga o te whānau. So if you have a look at those, I believe we've all got some handouts. Have you? Manawa toa. I think it might be in your little kete that you have. Have you seen this? You'll find it in the seat pocket and the seat in front of you. This is the one we're referring to. Manawa ora, manawa toa. Ka pai? Manawa ora, manawa toa, the epitome and mana of the humble warrior. In humility, we can live to 100 years plus, no problem. It's just finding a way and how we get about that. And particularly the role for our men that we deliver a large proportion of our mahi, me pehe te tapu o te tāne. Tutuka tuariki, we do a lot of work in the community, in the schools, in the prisons, te ana te waipounamu, probation, and also youth justice. And we carry the same korowai aukati into all of those work environments, but in particularly addressing a lot of the issues and bringing our men back to being Māori. So all our wānanga that we run in those different types of environments, we always ensure that our people come along for the right reasons, and the most important thing is let's come along and celebrate who we are in its most purest and practical form. And what we mean by purest and practical form is that our tupuna have already laid the whāriki where they've lived to 100 years plus. When we follow in those traditions of living in most purest and practical form, we could prolong and sustain life to that age also. Don't be a statistic that goes 6 foot underground between the ages of 48 to 52. For our tāne, when we ask the question, what is the meaning in that, in your whakaaro me pehe te oranga o te whānau, how do we see the well-being of our whānau? You'll get quite a number of wide range of answers, going out there to work and bringing home, kai and that, ka tika. But where do we see it in the traditional world of those taonga that our tupuna have handed down, and what they would really want to see in us today? You saw it this morning, probably in its purest form, in the kōrero. When the karaua says to you, tama, come and sit beside me on the pai. He's not going to tell you why. You're going to sit there probably for about 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe 4 or 5 years. And after that time, he may say to you after 4 or 5 years, tama, a manuhiri have arrived. You will do the whakatau, the kōrero, and welcome them. But what he's actually saying is that I hope you've been listening the last 4 or 5 years, because if you get it wrong, look out. Hey, that's the pinnacle of well-being. Why? Because the role of our men today is to ensure that that whakapapa is tika. No compromise, no watered down versions. So the tama will get up and share that whakapapa, the same as the karaua, and not a word or letter missing. Exactly the same. However, by him sitting there, that's where the mana of his whānau, hapu, iwi, and Māori is overall. There's more mana in that than what there is in John Keys and his brothers Monkey and Donkey will ever have. There's more mana in that than what the most powerfulest man in the world, Barack Obama, and our whānau over there will ever have. The pinnacle of well-being for us in Te Ao Māori, and the most sacred taonga that we have, is whakapapa. Knowing who we are. So the role of our men is to ensure that that whakapapa is tika. And the karaua, he will pick you out to sit there because he knows that you'll be a kaitiaki and a guardian for that. He's probably got about 10,000 others that he could choose from, but he's chosen you. So, yeah, make it work, so to speak. That's the biggest honour in Māoridom for our men. And we need to ensure that we know what those responsibilities in that are. When you can fulfil that role, then you'll know what the role of our men, being fathers, sons, or grandfathers, whatever it may be, is still the same. Once you can fulfil that role and give it the dignity, respect, and money deserving of it, then you'll know what the role of our men is today. No problem. So, yeah, I'll share a little bit of, maybe get a few laughs out of us, eh? We look quite serious sitting there. We do a lot of work in the prisons. And we have our units and our whānau that come down to the whare, share a lot of the kōrero, what the kaupapa is about, do our introductions, you know, who we are, where we're from. And normally, one of the three of us who deliver to them, our first introduction kōrero to our men is, so when is your next kōpē change? Sorry, what was that, Mata? When is your next kōpē change? They say, we don't wear kōpē matua. We say, in reality, how many of you are fathers? Put your hands up. Hands up like this. Okay. In reality, your tamariki and your mokopuna, they can piss and shit at will. You can't. You have to ask. To back that up, you could probably share with them, who else do you see here, besides us, who's wearing different clothes, coloured clothes than what we're wearing? I'll give you a hint. It's got a chain with some keys on the end of it that sits in his pocket. Oh, it's the office over there, Mata. That's right. When we talk about us being grown men, I don't think so. He's here to babysit and look after you. And the choice that you made, he gets paid well. Not only does he get paid well, he probably thinks when he's had enough of you, he gets hoha with you, he'll probably go over and lay in the sun over in the islands there for 3 weeks, and then after that, spend another 2 weeks in Aussie, then come home. And you're still here. But when he gets back, he gets a big fat pay packet for being away from you. And with that pay packet, what's worse than that, he'll go away and buy some kai to put on the table for his children and his mokopuna. What about yours? Feel stink now? And that's the reality talk to a lot of our whānau in that environment. However, it differs from the other environments such as working in probation and in youth justice, and we don't take any of that into the schools that we go into.